Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Evolve Through God. My name is Angela Goodman. I am your host today, and likely most days on this podcast, it will probably only be me. I'm super excited today to welcome someone that I had the opportunity to meet through a Stage Leaders program that Jen Gottlieb hosts. And I was on as a guest, and I got to meet Cassandra through that. And I'm so excited to have her on today. I watch her social media. I probably stalk it. I'm a big fan. And she is continuously posting about her faith and messages that she gets. And I love that about her. So I asked her to be on the show with us. So welcome, my friend. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be able to share my story.
Yeah. It's I was telling you before the podcast, right? I get the opportunity to meet so many people, and I've had a lot of guests on the show that I've known ahead of time, and I know a little bit about their faith journey. And my favorite guests are always the ones that I don't know as much about, because I feel like we get the opportunity to really unpack it and uncover it. And I am always just excited by God's work in other people's lives. So the podcast itself is about kind of from the beginning. So I would love it if you would start by sharing with us when you kind of first came to know God.
Amazing. I grew up in church. So I think unlike a lot of us in our journeys, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. So I'm from Canada. So the church is back in Toronto. And from a very young age, all I can remember was every Sunday was church. It was Bible school all the time. It was summer camps at church. It was youth groups. I'm a singer, so it was vocal choirs and classes and everything that you can imagine. And so when I think back to that memory, I remember sitting in the front row. I remember having my journal. I remember my first mentor, her name is Lori. And I remember thinking to myself, like, just so many questions around God. And like, how can this be true? And if this happens, then how can God be real? It's probably that. And just, I had so much curiosity and so many questions. Mm-hmm. Fast forward till I was around 14 years old, and my father's father was diagnosed with throat cancer. Mm-hmm. And they took him to, I'm going to call him a healer down in Toronto, who basically called out, your cancer has been healed, your cancer is now gone, this sort of experience.
Wow.
About 6 months later, he passed away.
Oh.
And so my father blamed us.
No.
And as a result, he pulled us from the church. And so I was probably about, I want to say maybe 13, 14, maybe a little bit younger than that. And it all of a sudden became where faith was such a big part of our lives, and prayer was a very big part of our lives. So it was almost like shame. And my dad very much had this resentment and didn't believe in it anymore. He said, if God is real, he would have healed my father, and he didn't, so he's not real.
Oh, wow.
And so I went through a period of my life where I would sneak to church, and I wasn't allowed to talk about it, and I had to hide, and it was something that we almost had to pretend I wasn't doing. My mom would sneak us. And then at some point, I'm a competitive hockey player, and sports took over, and traveling on tournaments on weekends really took over my life. And I lost my faith, almost completely. And when I say that, there was always still a deep connection and always still a knowing. Mm-hmm. And I would only turn to him when I really needed him. It was only in those desperate moments when you get down on your hands and knees and you're bawling your eyes out and you're like, God, I need you right now. And then we're going to fast forward to where he really came back into my life. And that's through my fiancé now, my partner, recent fiancé. And he came back into my life with such a strong faith. And he was going to church and he was talking about God. And I was just open, just very open. And I would listen to him. Mm-hmm. And he would go to church every Sunday. And it started to become this curiosity. So I would hear him go to church and he would talk about his experience. And I would say, that's cool. And then the next week it was like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. How old were you at that time?
This is 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So I was 33. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And are you in the States at this point, or are you still in Canada?
Mm-hmm. I'm in Austin. Yeah, I'm in the States.
Okay.
Yeah. And so then one day I said, can I come with you? And he said, sure. And then that turned into me really refining my faith, a complete breakdown of can't even believing that I had lost it and where it had been, and just this overwhelming sense of him coming back into my life. Mm-hmm. And one day it was baptism day, and they were baptizing everyone. They're all getting in the tub. They're getting in the tub, and they're saying, if you're feeling the call, whatever excuses come into your mind, your hair is going to be wet, we got blow dryers. You don't have clothes, we've got clothes. Whatever your excuses, get up here. And it was probably 30 seconds left where they were still allowing people. And I turned to my partner and said, do you think we still have time for me? And he said, yep, let's go. And so we walked up to the line, and the same pastor baptized me who had baptized him 1 year before. Just so happened that was the tub that God blessed me to be in. We were baptized by the same pastor and now is going to marry us. And from that moment forward, faith has just completely rocked my life in the most beautiful way, because I fully opened up my heart and let God into my life, and as the foundation of my relationship and as the foundation of my business. And I can't even explain the ways that my life has transformed and changed, because God is at the foundation of everything that we do.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the Cold Notes version of my
That's
story.
awesome. So I had no idea that would be your story, obviously. So I love that, because I feel like the calling back is even more powerful than the beginning. So back when you were you were 13, 14 years old and you were kind of ripped out of the church. Did you at that time also question God? Do you feel like because of your dad's dissonance in that you also did that for yourself?
Yes, 100%. I feel like those are formative years, and you look up to your father. Like I said, I played competitive hockey from 3 years old. I spent 6 nights a week with my dad. And so his opinion became my opinion, as so many of our stories as children growing up.
Yeah.
We take on the beliefs of our parents and what we're exposed to. And so when he was so passionate against it, I had to wonder why. And he was the leader of our family, and I followed suit in his belief and in his curiosity that maybe it wasn't real.
Yeah. So where are you with your dad now? Like, where is your dad in his faith journey now?
So I think one of the things that I think is so beautiful about this journey, and I'm sure you probably can attest to this, is that God works in the most beautiful ways in your life when you just be. And so me just being in my faith, talking about it, and allowing it to speak for itself has allowed people around me to fall into it as well. And that's kind of where we're at with my dad right now. Me making a commitment to go to church, even when I'm back in Canada and my home church is here, I will watch it online or I'll find a local church. Me praying before every single meal. It used to be he would laugh at me, he would joke, he would tell me to leave the table. And now, recently, within the last 6 months to a year, my dad will stop before dinner and say, "Aren't we praying?" And he'll put his hands out and ask for me to lead a prayer. And at Christmas, he said, "Can I lead the prayer?" And then when I was watching church online at his house, he said, "Can I join you?" And so it's just been him now having this curiosity of coming back, because he's seen how God is working in my life.
Yeah.
And he's curious. And the most beautiful part is, 2 weeks ago, my mother was her birthday, 75th birthday. And she said, "God doesn't listen to me. And I'm tired of asking because he doesn't listen to me." And she was crying, and she said, "He seems to be doing these beautiful things in your life, but I don't think he hears me. He doesn't hear me." And I said, keep trying. And so she sent me a message saying, "Do you know how I can tap into a church, or if there's a way I can get into this?" And I sent her the church that I go to. You can watch it online. And I sent her the link. I said, "Today was a great sermon. Would love for you to tune in." And she did. And then the next week she did all on her own. And the next week she did all on her own. And she messages me now. It's been 4 weeks in a row. And she messages me every time and says, "That was a powerful message. I think God's working. That was a powerful message. I think God's working." And so, like
awesome.
I said, you standing in your faith and not pushing it on people, you need to do this, you have to do this, but just talking about it and providing an invitation, it allows for that curiosity to be there.
Yeah. So what does standing in your faith look like for you?
For me, I talk about it. I talk about it a lot. Good things and bad things all in my life. God is the foundation of it all. And so my parents see how much I talk about it. They see how much I give credit to everything in my life. We could share a story about the number 222 and how that shows up in my life when God is speaking to me. And I start calling it out all the time. And so I talk about it. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And
give us an example. Give us an example of one of those stories. I would love to hear about a God touch and a God wink and what that's been for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So for me, the biggest way for me is the number 222, and I don't have one specific example. I just have like lots. And it's more, if I'm going through something and it's this sense of like, God, I don't know what to do right now. I could really use a sign. I will get cut off by someone. And when I'm getting cut off by that someone, like, your reaction is to be angry. I just got cut off by that person. But when I decide to go, all right, you're in more of a hurry than I am. Come on in. And I look down and it'll be 222 on the license plate or
Oh,
222. And that Angela, I cannot explain to you how much that comes off in my life. All my friends and family know this now. I need the tattoo when I'm not pregnant. The tattoo will be happening because I'm just the number 2 and the way it shows up in any moment of my life when I'm needing that sign or that reassurance or whatever it is. And now my parents have started to notice it. And they started to notice how like, oh, like it's you too. I'm like, yeah, I know. God, he's here. And he's telling me and reminding me he's here.
yeah.
When I pay for the bill for my mother's birthday after a massive fight, blew up at the table, and I said, guys, God's with us. And the bill comes in at 222. Like it's just everything like that in my life that's how God really talks. One of the ways that he talks.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you bring up that somebody cutting you off in traffic is a gift. I love that you bring that up because I'm sure there's plenty of people who are listening to this podcast today are like, if I got cut off in traffic, I am not going to look at that as a gift. But most of the things that happen to us in our lives that are so difficult for us to deal with are actually gifts and lessons that God provides in order to help us break our patterns or break the things that are not meant for us anymore. So that's right. That's exactly right. So I'm so happy that you shared that because we should all be looking for what is the gift when we feel that moment of anger or frustration. It's like, okay, I feel anger, I feel frustration, but what is the gift here? Because there is one for sure.
Yeah, I call it light in the dark. I like to do a lot of work in the duality space. It's actually a book that I'm working on right now, and it's really leaning into duality. And one of the small ways that we can talk about is exactly what you just said, and how there truly is a purpose, a lesson, a story, a discovery, a learning behind everything that happens in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest gifts that people have seen in me. If they talk about Cassandra 5 years ago versus Cassandra today, they'll say, you have this sense of trust. It's like this blind trust and this blind surrender. And I say it every single day. It'll also be a tattoo on me. It's God's plan, not mine. And so if I wanted to go to an event on Sunday, which I so desperately wanted to go to, I stood in line for 2 hours and I didn't get in. So many people would be upset. And there was a moment where I'm like, dang, that sucks. But also, God's plan, not mine. He didn't want me in there. He wanted me doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up turning around and talking to some women around me and making a really beautiful connection. So, and whether or not that was his purpose or not, that's his plan. And I think that God has a plan for all of us. And so many of us are resistant to thinking that it should be one way and it should all be butterflies and rainbows and it should be all uphill.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much beauty in the struggle as well. And that's also a gift from God, is those struggles and is those learnings and those opportunities. When you ask for patience and it shows up in your life in a way that you maybe didn't ask for, that's because you asked for patience and God really keeps you patient.
Yeah. Now, I this might put you a little bit on the spot, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I would love it if you would share with our listeners how old you are.
Yeah, I'm 35. Happy to share it. 35.
So at 35 years old, you came back 2 years ago, 3 years ago ish, right, to your faith. You were called back. The amount of wisdom that God has given you in that period of time is such a gift. It's such a gift. And really, in all honesty, at 35, I started my faith walk truly at about 38 or 39. So I look at the window that you have in that very short period of time, how much wisdom you have since you've been called back. And it's so beautiful. And it's such a gift. And you should use that on every single platform that you possibly can. Because between your inner beauty, your outer beauty, the openness that people feel, the heart that we feel from you, you are meant to impact in a big way in that way. So I hope you will carry that wisdom forward to whoever will listen to you.
Yeah, that's the purpose. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Let the masses hear the voice and hear the word of God. Bring more people back to the kingdom. I truly believe is one of the purposes.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk a little bit about, I love the fact that you brought up your relationship, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that as women, we are helpers for our version of Adam, right? And we are here to help and support and walk in purpose with them. And I love that your relationship has brought you closer, obviously, and called you back. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like for you. Was that easy for you guys in the beginning? You said he'd only been baptized, a year before you. So what did that challenge look like as you two were coming together?
Yeah. I was baptized when I was 7, but it wasn't my choice. And so
Yeah.
this one was a conscious my choice of coming back. And that's why I chose to do it again. So I'll go deep and I'll be honest, because I think someone listening to this really needs to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship is not butterflies and rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
It has never been butterflies and rainbows. We have worked hard every single day to stay together when most would walk away. I would say 99% of people would fold in the towel, walk away. This is way too hard. I can't do this. John and I have a undeniable chemistry, passion, and deep soul connection. I truly, to my core, believe that God brought us together to help each other ascend and to help each other heal. And so in that, he triggers everything inside of me that wants to scream and wants to run away. and I do the exact same for him.
Mm-hmm.
But because we have chosen to stay and we have chosen to invite God in as the rock and as the foundation of becoming better people, I look at him every single day and I say, I choose you every day, and I will work to become a better version of myself because of you and for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that God is a part of our lives every single day. We wake up and we pray, of course, before every single meal. Any happiness or glory or celebration is to him, but also every struggle we give thanks. We give thanks for every fight. We give thanks for every awareness. We give thanks for every discovery. And it's been difficult. It's been incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very dark, deep past, and it's been heavy for him. He had a history with alcohol abuse. His father left him when he was young. He's been through it a lot of suicidal tendencies in the past, and it's been a journey. And one of the beautiful things that I think God brought me into his life for is to be that rock. And as much as in a traditional relationship, you think that the man holds more of the masculine, the woman holds more of the feminine. I can go all day and argue about this all day long.
Mm-hmm.
I get to hold, in some regards, I get to hold more of a masculine space to provide that safety for him, to let him know that I'm not leading in the way that his father. And God gives me that strength, even though I'm an avoidant and I want to run and I want to leave. God gives me the strength and gives me the message to say, I'm staying, and I'm staying for this man, because he needs to know what safety is, and he needs to know what it's like to have a woman who's going to stay and provide that for you and not leave.
Yeah.
I could go all day about my.
No, but that's beautiful. And the reason I asked that question is because I think oftentimes people don't recognize that the person that you are meant to be in partnership with is the person that is going to trigger you the most. To your point, we are all here on a healing journey, and we can't heal if we don't have somebody who's poking the wound, right? We got to have somebody who's poking it so that we can truly heal it. And so it was a bit of a loaded question on my end, but
yeah, no, that's okay. And I'm happy to share it, because I think most people say it was easier when I was single. Of course it was easier when you were single. You didn't have anybody poking. You thought that you were perfect, and you thought that life was great because you didn't have anybody triggering the pieces of you that are the most broken, that need the most work, that need the most love and attention. And I said to God that I wanted a partner who was deep, who was driven in faith. Even when I hadn't found him, I was still calling that in. Who was business minded and entrepreneur minded, and who could help me truly grow. I'll share something vulnerable. I used to be unfaithful in every relationship I was in before I met this partner. Right? That is not something to be proud of. When I think back to that, of course I'm ashamed of that. But I was broken. I was troubled. I didn't know why I was doing that. And there was something there that I needed to discover. John has held a safe space for me to look at that and learn how to become a respectful, loyal, faithful partner. And that's been hard. That's been really hard to look at those ugly pieces of me and ask myself, why? Why have I been doing this? What have I been seeking? And where is this misalignment, and why have I been doing this? And that's just a small example of how he has held space for me to grow through the broken sides of me.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because that's not an easy share. And it, obviously periods of your time in your life where you feel guilt, you feel shame, and you feel embarrassment. It's difficult to share those things. And at the same time, I know there will be a woman listening to this podcast who says, "Oh man, that was me. That was me. And that is me. And I need to figure it out. Why do I feel this way?" So let's talk about, what did you uncover during that time about yourself that you realized, oh, this is why I do that?
Yeah. I had to go inward. I had to go super inward and ask myself. It was truly, it was a fear of commitment. And it was also putting somebody else on a pedestal of wanting them to be something. And the second I would find a glimpse that they weren't that, I would think that somebody else somewhere else would have that. And it was like, it's greener on the other side. Well, we all know that it's actually greener where you stay and you water it. Never, ever greener on the other side. I don't care if it's a business opportunity. I don't care what it is. It's greener where you stay and where you water it. I didn't know how to do that. And it's interesting because my parents, to my knowledge, have always been faithful to each other. There's never been anything like that I saw growing up. I saw a faithful relationship. I saw a very unhealthy relationship. I saw a man who, in my words, has stolen the power from a woman who now is pretty much helpless and asked to have a new pair of shoes, and she's got holes in her shoes because she needs him to buy the shoes, and he says no, and she's at mercy to him. So I grew up seeing a very different dynamic. You wonder why I came with such a strong masculine, I don't need a man energy for most of my life. And when I would feel like a man was starting to take my power, or it was too much commitment and I was going to rely on him in any way, shape, or form, or it was like union and partnership, I would cheat. I would run. I would try to find something else that was new and exciting, that I could just be the happy-go-lucky and I didn't have to do the deep work side of me. And I would watch it all crash before me because chaos is something that for some reason I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of the shame and all of the guilt because we self-sabotage. We don't actually think that we're worthy of any of the beautiful things God brings into our lives. If we haven't done that work, we don't think that we're worthy of it, and so we'll go and we'll self-sabotage.
So when did you start doing this level of work for yourself?
Yeah, it was probably about 5 years ago. I ran a beauty salon, massive beauty salon. I started when I was 19 years old. Long story short, COVID happened, the doors were shut, and I got into coaching. I was listening to a podcast, I was super inspired, and I wanted to help other people build strong, successful $1 million businesses the way that I had. And that led me to a personal development journey. It led me to plant medicine. It led me to just a deep soulful discovery. It brought me back to God. It made me really curious. Why am I walking through life with a bulletproof vest? Nobody around me has a gun. Why am I so protected?
I love that.
Why am I protecting my heart? Why am I so guarded? Why am I so like in my heavy, dominant, masculine energy? I'm a woman. And when you look at me from the outside, people don't get that. Yeah. But when you really got to know me before, everyone said, wow, this woman is so intense. She's so stuck in her masculine. And so I did a incredible deep dive. It was retreats. I know you run beautiful retreats. I run retreats as well. It was a lot of retreats. It was finding mentors who are 5 steps ahead of me, who I aspired to be like, being curious, asking questions, going to events, surrounding myself with better people, people that were doing the things that I wanted to do, and removing people that were keeping me in spaces that I didn't want to be in. And it was being able to radically look at my faults and say, okay, yeah, that's all true. That's all real. I'm not perfect. And the longer that I want to keep on this bulletproof vest and hide myself, the longer I feel like a fraud. I feel like a fake. I feel like I'm just walking through life, like protecting myself and pretending I'm something that I'm really not. Well, who is Cassandra? What does that little beautiful girl inside of me want to come out and express? And how do I allow a safe space for her to come out? And so, like maybe about 5 years ago, I started in this personal development journey, and every course you can imagine and every book you can imagine reading. Yeah. And I truly discovered my voice, not just the sound of my voice, but what do I want to say? What is my message? What am I here to do? What impact am I here to leave? And that came through personal development and the deep soulful work.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And we're going to get into later. One of the questions that I ask is about resources for the listeners, to do those kinds of journeys. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Do you feel like your relationship was given to you once you had done some of that work?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I think it was also given to me because I was at the point where I was ready to face it and I was ready to do it. And he's the exact man and the only man that would have the patience for me through the process. God bless him.
And you're probably the only woman who would have the patience to help him through his things also.
We have had that conversation many times. He said, nobody else would put up with this. I go, yeah, no one else would have put up with me. But here we are.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. I love that. So as you're walking through this journey now, what are some things that you do for yourself to maintain intact, right? Do you have days that challenge you at all? What do those days look like?
I have days that challenge me, of course. I'm a human being. I'm a conscious woman. I'm a business owner. I'm pregnant. I'm 20 weeks pregnant right now. Of course, I have days that challenge me. What do you mean? What do they look like in terms of?
So how do you handle when let's say you wake up and the day is not going the way you want it to go, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't know about today. What do you do to get your mind in the right place to tackle the challenges? Yeah.
Journal and pray. Cliche answer, but it's journal and pray. And to kind of go back to a point that I already made, before there was a resistance. And I think a lot of people live in that resistance. So it's, this was my plan. This isn't going to happen because I'm sick or this or whatever, traffic, whatever it is, right? You put in the obstacle or the roadblock. That sucks. I'm going to be resistant to this not happening. I now live in a state where I can truly say, it's a smile. I look up at God. I'm like, all right, God, I see you. I see you. Today, you didn't want me to get out of bed and grind. Today, you wanted me to stay in bed. You wanted me to cuddle my dog. You wanted me to heal my body. You wanted me to maybe write. You wanted me to move slower. I see you. I hear you. And I will obey. And I pray and I journal through. And it used to be a resistance to like, I have all these things I'm supposed to do, but all of these things and all these, whatever it is. And now it's just a state of like an wavering knowing in every cell of my body, it's his plan, not mine. And I'm just here to surrender and obey. And so I feel like the second I was able to stop resisting and fighting his plan, it's just like, everything is so much easier. Everything is so much more beautiful. And if we want to talk about the reticular activator system, what you look for, you will find, right? What you fix your eyes on, you will find. I was saying this the other day. And so if you're looking for all the opportunities to be angry and support all these reasons why your life sucks, you will find them. But if we look for all of the opportunities that your life is beautiful in the way that God is presenting beauty in your life, you will find them.
Yeah.
And so prayer and journaling, asking myself the right questions and giving myself grace and space when maybe I'm not working at the pace that I would like.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think the grace and space is so important for people to remember because to your point, we're human and we're not perfect. And we have to make sure that we give ourselves the time to not only digest the things that are happening to us in our life, but also process through them so that they don't stay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, we get to repeat the same pattern over and over and over and over and over again. And we bang our head against the wall every day saying, why isn't this changing? Why isn't this changing? Well, guess what? When we turn it around and we look at ourselves and we realize that you have radical ownership over everything that's happening in your life, the second we can take that ownership, we can realize that there's a purpose in all of it.
So true. So true. So awesome. You are such a light, and I'm so glad to have had you on today because of that. Yeah, just such a light, such a light. So we're kind of moving toward the end of our conversation together already. I feel like we just got on here. So talk to me a little bit about resources. So some of the viewers or listeners, they get on here and they don't really know where to start. Some of them are in the beginning of their faith walk. So what did you do for resources in the beginning of yours that you feel would be beneficial for somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, right at the beginning, I would always tell someone to grab a Bible, like grab I'm not sure the right word for it, but there's different versions of the Bible. It's English Standard Version, I guess is what it's called, where it's like the easier to read Bible. So that would be number one. And just start reading and start being curious. Number two is, for me, it was like groups and communities of people that are talking. So again, reticular activator system is what you want to find. I would just start putting out there and start having those conversations and looking for groups and communities of people that are talking about their faith. My inbox is a complete open inbox for anyone who wants to reach out and have a conversation with me as a way that I can be a resource for them. And then I would love to give you the link to my church that I go to because they stream 5 sessions, 2 on Saturdays and 3 on Sundays, and they stream them live. And so for anyone that maybe just wants to start by turning on a YouTube channel and watching and being curious, it's a phenomenal experience. They don't have to be in Austin. They don't have to go to a church. They can just turn it on and just start being curious.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll include all of that in the show notes so that the listeners have access to all of that as well. So thank you for offering that. So I know it's funny. During our conversation, you had a moment where you brushed your arm like you were getting goosebumps because of our conversation. And so my next question is actually, as people start to come more into contact with their faith on a regular basis, you will have moments that feel like spirit to you, right? So my question is, when you feel the connection with Holy Spirit, so whether you're in prayer or you're having conversation with someone else, what does that physical manifestation feel like for you? What does that put you into in your body?
Two main ways. The first one is my whole body goes through chills. It's usually in my back. It'll start at the tip of my neck and it goes down my back first. And then sometimes I'll get it through my arms. So goosebumps is the first way. Every time I'm in church, it's almost instantaneously. It's just there. I feel it. I didn't probably already notice. I spend a large amount of time, when I'm on stages, like I'll spend a large amount of time with my eyes closed. And because I feel like that's how I connect and he'll speak through me. And so it takes me a second. I just stop and I listen and I feel, and then the right words can just flow. And when I close my eyes, it's almost like this entire white orb is around me. And I just feel this hug. I feel this warmth and I feel this hug. And it's like, I can't stop smiling and I feel this warmth. And it's like, oh, he's here. Like he's here. And I can feel it.
I love that. That's the peace of God right there. Yeah.
How does it show up for you? How does it show up for you?
Similarly, I start at the crown of my head, and if I am in flow, I will get from the crown down. It's almost like just a tingly sensation, almost like your body fell asleep or you lost circulation in your body. But it starts at the crown of my head and works all the way through my body. I also will get this. It's like a need to just open my mouth. It's really strange. And then when I'm working in healing presence, I actually sneeze. So for me, it's a little funny from a healing energetic perspective, which we talked about. Someone may have not truthfully done that for your grandfather, but in a healing energy perspective, if I have been working in the healing energy, I will be finished, breathe it out, and then just sneeze for like an hour. It's wild.
It's consistent. When I do retreat work, different to what you do, but when I do retreat work, after at least 2 days of being in the energy of women sharing and being vulnerable and like opening up those containers and poking on things and helping them work through things, I get migraines.
Oh wow!
I get insane migraines because it's so much that you're carrying in the ascension, and so I'll just get migraines. And I know that's going to happen. So every single retreat by day 2, I'm like ready for it and ready for it to come through. And I just feel like it's a lot of really intense energy that I'm carrying. And so then I can pray and sometimes I can just clear it myself. But it's a way that shows up from the other side, carrying almost like their I don't want to say the word, so their negative energy that kind of comes through.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that regard, I'm good for about 4 days. And then during that time, what I do is I properly hydrate my body. And then every evening I go through essentially a mantra to get rid of that energy. And I have to do that. But after 4 days, it's about my limit. Once I've gone through about a 4-day process of that, of leading that change for other folks, I have to just shut off and just completely disconnect from everything and just be. Otherwise, I had one experience, my very first retreat that I hosted, I was literally physically sick for 2 weeks. And if you saw a picture, like I was gray. I was literally gray for like 2 weeks. That's how depleted of energy. And I'd probably absorbed some negative I hadn't released, but yeah.
Totally. Yeah. We know that the healthiest aspect of a relationship, I would argue, is communication. And so when we talk about building a healthy relationship with God, for anyone who's listening or curious, it starts with communication. And how we get to communicate with God is through prayer. And so what we're both just experiencing, going through, one of the things I'll pray for is to cleanse. Like God comes through and He's cleansing me of this energy, of these thoughts, of these behaviors, of these beliefs, of everything that's just been imposed onto me, and just cleanse me. And I think just simply talking to Him Like sometimes I'm like, he's my homie. Like he's just here with me. I'm just having a conversation all day long with him. It doesn't need to be what I believe. It doesn't need to be on your hands and knees, praying like this with your eyes closed in order for it to be prayer. I pray 1,000 times a day. We started our podcast episode with a prayer. And so it's anything and everything that in that moment you're feeling like you need. God, I'm thankful for this fun time.
Yeah.
Just talk to him. Talk to him.
Well, and to your point, it's a relationship, and you can't have a really good relationship without communication. So you talk as much as you want to. Yeah, that's beautiful. All right. Well, the last question I have for you today. So if you were helping your younger self, so that 13-year-old girl who got pulled out of church and lost that connection and lived in that space, what would you tell her today with all that wisdom that you have now?
I love this question. And there's kind of two sides to this. One, I actually didn't change anything because it was the path that God intended for me to have. So I truthfully don't know if I would really change much. I was meant for every experience to form the woman that's in front of you today. And without all of that, I wouldn't be this one.
That's right.
And so there's that perspective. There's also the perspective, and I've said this a couple of times, and it's nothing fancy, but it's literally just to have that trust and to surrender. If I could tell her anything from a younger age, it's like put down that wall, open your heart and surrender. You don't need to protect yourself so much. You don't need to walk through life with a bulletproof vest. Everything's okay. And so it's just to have more trust and surrender. I walked through life protecting myself, thinking I had to do it all on my own. And the second I fully was able to actually open up that heart and allow people into my life, I was able to allow God back into my life. So just to tell her that you're going to be just fine. Like you are going to move and take this world, and you're going to be just fine, baby girl.
I'm so excited for you. So you said you're 20 weeks.
20 weeks tomorrow. Yeah, we are exactly halfway through.
Do you know if you're having a boy or a girl?
It's a baby boy.
Oh, yay. That's so exciting.
I know.
You have is it going to be a June baby?
It'll be born at the very end of July. I think it's going to be August 2nd.
Okay.
This is my number 2, but right now it's July 30th.
Okay. Could be July 22nd. Could be early.
Could be
that too.
But he'll be a Leo, and let me tell you, brainstorming names for a baby, very difficult. We want it to be some sort of connection to God and faith-based.
God is going to give you that name, silly girl. There's no brainstorming required. It's just going to it's going to come to both of you, and it might come to both of you when you're apart, but that name is going to come from God. You know that. So
I do know that. Again, it's a sense of everyone's like, what are you naming him? You're due in 4.5 months. I'm like, no, I'll figure it out.
Not everybody walks in the same vein yet, right? Not everybody walks in that vein of I'm not in control yet. Yeah. So to your point, you are part of the light that will get people to that point. Yeah. You're just a beautiful soul, inside and out, my dear. So I'm very excited to watch you continue to grow and flourish and stalk your social media and watch your adventures and get to see that beautiful baby when he's born. And just grateful to you for being on the show today. Is there anything that you'd like to tell our listeners before we sign off?
Yeah, the last piece I want to leave, because I'm not sure exactly where people are at in their journey who listen to your show, is just to be curious. Just to be curious and to be open. I think when we are open to the ways that God is moving in your life, good or bad, it doesn't necessarily always present itself as beautiful opportunities. And Prince Charming walked into my life, or this $1 million job walked into my life. That must be God. Of course, that's God. But God is also the struggle. God is also teaching you lessons in all of the dark places of your life, the light and the dark, the dance of duality. And so I think for the person who's listening, if you think God's not talking to you, he is. You're just not open to it. Yeah. And so just to be more open to the ways that he is moving.
Yeah. What a great message to leave everybody with. Thank you so much. And I will have everything in the show notes for folks to follow you, and then also your church links as well. Thank you to everyone who listened to the episode today with Cassandra. So excited to have her on today. She is a light. Go follow her everywhere you can and listen to her beautiful words of wisdom. So thank you all for listening to Evolve Through God, and we'll see you at the next episode.